Forget everything you think you know about eating after 60. Because the diet industry has been lying to you, and the worst part is, it's been lying to you in a way that sounds helpful. Keto, intermittent fasting stretched out for days, juice cleanses, miracle supplements with names you can't even pronounce. Every single one of them promises the same thing: fast results, a younger body, a reversal of time itself, and every single one of them ignores something far more important: what happens to your body over decades, not over weeks. Think about how many times you've seen a headline promising the one food to never eat after 50, or the secret trick doctors don't want you to know. Most of it is noise dressed up to look like science. And the tragedy is, somewhere underneath all that noise, there's actual research. Real studies, real people, tracked for real decades, and almost nobody talks about it because it doesn't sell a supplement or a 21-day challenge. This isn't going to be another video telling you to cut carbs or drink celery juice at 6 in the morning. This is going to be about what real, long-term research, tracking real people for up to 30 years, actually found about eating well after 60. Not guesses, not trends, data. And some of it is going to surprise you. Some of it contradicts what you've been told for years. Stick with me, because by the end of this, you're going to look at your own plate completely differently. Before we go further, one thing needs to be said clearly. This channel exists to help you understand the research, not to replace your doctor. Everything here is educational. If you're managing a health condition or taking medication, please talk to your physician before changing anything about your diet or routine. We're not here to diagnose you. We're here to inform you. Now let's start with the biggest study of its kind. Researchers followed more than 105,000 people, using data collected from the Nurses' Health Study and the Health Professionals' Follow-Up Study, starting all the way back in 1986 and running through 2016. That's 30 years of tracking real eating habits in real people, not a 6-week trial funded by a supplement company. Published in Nature Medicine, this research looked at 8 different dietary patterns and something the researchers called healthy aging. Not just staying alive, staying sharp, staying mobile, staying mentally well, living to 70 without a major chronic disease holding you back. Out of the people tracked, less than 10% actually hit that mark of healthy aging. Think about that for a second. The majority of people, even with access to modern medicine, did not age the way they hoped to. So what separated the few who did? It wasn't a miracle pill. It was consistency. People who leaned toward diets rich in vegetables, fruit, whole grains, unsaturated fats, and low-fat dairy had significantly better odds of aging well. Across every category researchers measured: cognitive health, physical function, mental well-being. And on the other side, the pattern was just as clear. Higher intake of ultra-processed foods, red and processed meats, trans fats, sugary drinks. All of it was linked to worse outcomes as people aged. Not maybe, not possibly, linked in data spanning 3 decades. Remember, healthy aging in this research wasn't one single measurement. It was a combination of things. Whether someone was still free of major chronic disease at 70, whether their cognitive function held up, whether their physical mobility stayed intact, whether their mental health remained stable. That matters because most fad diets only chase one number: weight on a scale. This research was measuring something much closer to what people actually care about at this stage of life. Can I still think clearly? Can I still move freely? Can I still enjoy my own days? Here's what makes this uncomfortable to hear. Most of the fad advice floating around online skips this part entirely. It focuses on short-term weight loss, not long-term function. But when you're in your 60s, 70s or beyond, the question isn't, how do I look thinner by summer? The question is, will I still be able to climb my own stairs in 10 years? That's the shift this research forces, and it's only the beginning. Let's talk about one specific fad that's exploded in popularity, especially among people trying to reset their health after 60. Intermittent fasting. It sounds simple. Compress your eating into a shorter window, skip breakfast, and let your body burn fat during the fasting hours. For a 30-year-old, this might come with very few downsides. But research reviewing this practice specifically in middle-aged and older adults tells a very different story. A systematic review and meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials looking specifically at age-related effects found something researchers described as a real clinical hazard. Older adults following intermittent fasting protocols showed a significant depletion of fat-free mass, meaning muscle, alongside their fat loss. The researchers pointed to something called age-related anabolic resistance, which blunts the muscle-protecting effects that fasting can trigger in younger bodies. Their conclusion wasn't never fast. It was that fasting in older adults needs to come paired with a much higher protein intake, generally 1.2 to 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight, along with resistance training 2 to 3 times a week if muscle loss is going to be avoided. On top of that, a survey published in the journal Nutrients found that after age 85, fewer than half of respondents even considered themselves physically fit enough to attempt a modified fasting protocol in the first place. Health organizations like AARP have also flagged real risks around dehydration and electrolyte imbalance during fasting windows in older adults, which can raise the risk of dizziness and fainting when standing up too quickly. So here's the honest, research-backed answer for anyone over 60 considering the trend. Fasting isn't automatically dangerous, but it isn't automatically safe either. And it comes with age-specific risks that almost never make it into the viral videos promoting it. If your body is already dealing with lower muscle mass, or you're managing a chronic condition, this is exactly the kind of decision that needs a conversation with your doctor first. Not a decision made because an influencer online lost 15 pounds in a month. Let's talk about something almost nobody mentions when they talk about eating after 60. How often you eat might matter as much as what you eat. A study out of Sweden, part of the Gothenburg H70 birth cohort research, followed adults from age 70 to 85 for 15 years, tracking their meal patterns and their mortality risk. And what they found was not what most people expect. Higher daily meal frequency in this group of older adults was associated with an increased mortality risk, not decreased, increased. This doesn't mean snacking is dangerous. And it doesn't mean you need to force yourself into some rigid 2 meals a day rule tomorrow morning. What it does mean is that meal pattern, timing, and structure deserve far more attention than they're currently getting in the mainstream conversation about senior nutrition. The researchers were careful to say this needs more investigation, especially around the nutritional quality of those meals, not just the number of times a person eats. But the signal is there, in real data, from a real long-term cohort. And it's exactly the kind of detail that gets buried under flashy diet trends. Think about how many times you've seen a headline promising the one food to never eat after 50, or the secret trick doctors don't want you to know. 6 small meals a day to boost metabolism. That advice wasn't built with the 70-year-old's biology in mind, and this long-term Swedish data is one of the few pieces of research that actually ask the question directly. None of this means you need to panic about your current eating schedule tomorrow morning. It means meal structure deserves the same scrutiny that ingredients get. Pay attention to this next part because it connects everything we've talked about so far to something happening in your own body right now. There's one more piece almost nobody connects to physical strength after 60, and it has nothing to do with protein at all. Fiber. A nationwide study out of Taiwan, part of the Healthy Aging Longitudinal Study, looked at more than 2,600 adults aged 55 and older. Researchers measured their daily fiber intake and compared it against objective physical performance tests. Gait speed, how far someone could walk in 6 minutes, how fast they could get up from a chair and walk, then sit back down, a test called timed up and go. Even hand grip strength. The result. Adults with higher fiber intake performed significantly better across every single one of those physical measures, even after accounting for other health factors. Faster walking speed, longer walking distance, stronger grip. This wasn't a supplement trial. This was real dietary data connected to real physical capability. And here's the problem. Most people over 70 aren't getting nearly enough fiber to begin with. Research on the gut microbiome in aging populations has pointed out that only a small fraction of adults over 71, in some estimates as low as 7% of men and 16% of women, are hitting the minimum recommended daily fiber intake. That's not a small gap. That's the vast majority of older adults quietly missing a nutrient tied to how well they walk, how strong their grip is, and how their gut functions overall. This is exactly the kind of finding that never makes it into a flashy fad diet plan, because fiber doesn't sell supplements or promise a dramatic before and after. It's beans, it's vegetables, it's whole grains, it's oats, boring, unglamorous, and backed by real data, connecting it to walking speed and strength in older adults. Now let's go somewhere further away, to a place where researchers went looking for answers in people who'd already lived the outcome. The island of Sardinia, in Italy, is known as one of the world's blue zones, regions where people reach extreme old age at unusually high rates. One study looked at 150 of what researchers called the oldest old, people between 90 and 101 years old, living in that region. Researchers didn't just ask what these people ate today. They traced how their diets had changed since the 1960s, across an entire nutrition transition, and compared that history to their current health, mobility, mood, and overall function. What they found reinforces everything else we've covered. The relationship between decades of eating habits and how well someone functions in their final years is deep, and it's not something you can fix with a 2-week cleanse. This is the thread connecting everything. Not a single meal, not a single trendy ingredient. A pattern repeated for years that either builds toward strength and independence or quietly works against it. What's striking about places like this is what's missing from the story. No detox teas, no fasting apps, no supplement stacks. Just decades of relatively simple, plant-forward eating, physical movement built into daily life, and social connection, repeated so consistently it became invisible to the people living it. They weren't optimizing. They were just living a certain way for a very long time, and the outcome speaks for itself in the data researchers collected on their mobility, mood, and overall function in their 90s and beyond. Compare that to how most fad diets are marketed today: dramatic, urgent. Start tomorrow, see results in 2 weeks. The research keeps pointing in the opposite direction: slow, boring, sustained for decades. That's a much harder thing to sell in a 30-second video. But it's what the actual data across every study we've covered so far keeps confirming. So where does that leave you, watching this right now? It means the diet industry has been asking you the wrong question. It's been asking, how do I lose weight fast? The research has been asking a completely different question all along. How do I keep functioning, thinking clearly, and moving freely for as many years as possible? Those two goals sometimes overlap, but often they don't. A crash diet might shed pounds quickly while quietly starving your muscles of the protein they need. A trendy fasting window might look impressive on social media, while working against the very meal consistency that decades of research suggests matters for older adults. Real change doesn't come from finding the one perfect diet. It comes from small, boring, consistent choices. Getting enough protein spread through the day, leaning toward whole foods instead of ultra-processed ones, paying attention to how your own body responds to meal timing instead of copying whatever a stranger online is doing. None of that trends on social media, but 3 decades of data say it's what actually works. If you've made it this far, you already care more about doing this right than most people ever will. That matters. The people who aged the healthiest in these studies weren't chasing extremes. They were the ones who showed up for themselves, meal after meal, year after year, without needing a dramatic transformation story to prove it. Let's make this real for a second, with a simple, ordinary example. Picture someone in their late 60s. For years, their routine looked like this: coffee and maybe toast in the morning. A light lunch, often just a sandwich. Then the biggest meal of the day at dinner, usually with most of the protein for the whole day loaded into that one plate. Based on everything we've just walked through, that pattern quietly works against 2 things at once. The protein arrives too late and too concentrated for aging muscles to use it efficiently across the day. And the earlier meals are often light on fiber, heavy on refined carbohydrates. Now picture a small shift. Eggs or Greek yogurt at breakfast instead of just toast. A lunch built around beans, vegetables, and a lean protein instead of a plain sandwich. Dinner still satisfying, just no longer carrying the entire day's protein by itself. Nothing extreme, no supplements required, no fasting window. Just redistributing what's already on the plate, guided by what decades of research actually points to. That's the difference between chasing a trend and applying evidence. One promises a transformation in 30 days. The other quietly protects the muscle, the gut, and the independence that decades of studies say actually matters. If you take one thing away from everything we've covered, let it be this: eating well after 60 was never about a finish line. It's not about fitting into something by summer or proving something to anyone else. It's about whether you can still carry your own groceries up the stairs in 15 years. Whether you can still get down on the floor to play with your grandchildren and get back up without help. Whether your mind stays sharp enough to keep doing the things that make your life feel like yours. That's what the real research has been pointing to the entire time, quietly, while the loud diet trends came and went. Consistency, real food, enough protein, spread through your day, enough fiber, more days than not. Attention to your own patterns instead of someone else's shortcut. Here's the part that's easy to miss when you're scrolling past yet another diet ad. None of the people in these 30-year studies knew, at 50 or 60, exactly how their choices would add up by the time they reached 70 or 80. They just kept showing up, meal after meal, without a finish line in sight. And decades later, the data shows it mattered more than almost anything else they could have done. You get to be one of those people too, not by finding a perfect diet, not by punishing yourself with restriction, by making the next meal, and the one after that, just slightly more aligned with what 3 decades of real research says actually protects the years ahead of you. Think about fiber the same way. You don't need to count grams obsessively. You need more beans on your plate than you had last month. More vegetables at dinner than you had last year. An extra piece of fruit instead of a packaged snack. Small, repeatable shifts, not a complete overhaul overnight. And if intermittent fasting or any other trending approach has caught your attention, that's not automatically off the table. It just means the conversation with your doctor matters more at this stage of life than it did at 30, especially around protein intake and muscle preservation while you're doing it. This content is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Please consult your doctor before making changes to your diet or routine, especially if you take medication or have a health condition. What works in a large study doesn't automatically apply to every individual body. This channel exists for one reason: to take real long-term research and translate it into something you can actually understand and use in your own life. No miracle claims, no fictional experts, just decades of data, explained honestly. If this video gave you something worth thinking about, do 3 things for me. Like it, so more people who need this see it. Drop a comment telling me one thing you're going to change. And share this with a friend who might need to hear it. One last thing. If any of this brought up a question specific to your own health, please bring it straight to your doctor. This video can hand you the research. It can't examine you or know your full medical history. What it can do is make sure you walk into that appointment already understanding why protein timing and fiber matter. Real research, explained plainly, so you're equipped to make informed decisions alongside the professionals who know you best. Thank you for spending this time with us. We'll see you in the next one.